Hi there, welcome back to another guide. Have you walked around in a major town and happened to come across this group of NPCs? Or have you happened to stumble upon the Dragon Tower and wondered how completing the Dragon Tower quests work? Well, you're in luck. In this guide, I hope to bring you an in-depth guide to a niche subject in this game. First off, let's start off with how this group of NPCs you'll see in major towns work. To understand how these work, let's bring up a topic in my previous guides, Dark King. While I mentioned that you're able to obtain summon goods and shoulder gear with a low drop rate, you're also able to obtain various amount of materials corresponding to the king that you defeat. There are periods that typically last a few days where challenging Dark King will result in one of 5 boss types to appear, each of which having their own materials. This will explain the multitude of NPCs which appear to have the same quests and dialogue. If you've ever spoken to any of them, you will likely be confused as to what the quest objectives are and what they reward. When speaking to these NPCs, they will offer lists of quests. The hunts 1 through 4 do not give notable gear, so I will skip to the next one. Shoulder crafting for the higher tiered gear starts at any of the Hunt 5 quests. The quest works by asking you to retrieve a high amount of materials from Dark King drops and turning them into the NPCs in for rewards for a random piece of shoulder gear. Looking at this chart for example, let's examine the Bardius quest to see how it works. Starting at Hunt 5, we can see that out of all random rewards for completing it, there are 4 random shoulders that you can obtain. The next hunts of 6, 7, and 8 and 9 function similarly but branch out for different shoulder gear. To complete Hunt 6 or 7, you will need a set of shoulders and materials to move on to the next hunt. In this case, a set of A and B Fang shoulders will craft a Y Fang shoulder. This is used for the last gear crafting quest in the set of Hunt 8, where it can be turned in alongside materials for a Hungry Dragon shoulder. In the case of Hunt 7 and 9, you would need a set of skill shoulders to craft the Y skill shoulder, and using that shoulder can be crafted into a diamond skill shoulder. I know that was a bit of a tongue twister, but I hope that all made sense. The last hunt that I haven't mentioned is the final hunt, which is a quest that gives out a random shoulder gear that you would originally get from completing hunts 8 or 9 for higher end materials, effectively removing the RNG out of needing sets of shoulders to complete the quest. This is the recommended way of getting a higher end shoulder than to manually complete each hunt yourself. Shoulder crafting doesn't end here though. There is a higher tier that you are able to craft by speaking to the captain of these NPCs. These usually require a set of high-end shoulders that come from crafting, with each being from different NPCs, alongside Magi metallic materials, which come from defeating Valka. Valka is another Dark King boss that functions differently than the others, where he appears in all Dark King periods at a higher level of around 70 and above. If you're looking at this now and thinking to yourself that this looks like a lot of work, well, I hate to break it to you, but it is. Shoulder gear is, in my opinion, the hardest gear slot to obtain, as even though I've done Dark King runs thousands of times at this point, I have yet to craft a high-end shoulder yet. This is why I recommend buying shoulders instead, as the craftable ones aren't too expensive these days, going for around 10 to 15 megs. Now that I've covered how these NPCs work, let's move on to Dragon Tower crafting. Before I get into this topic, I want to mention that I will not reference all of the gears craftable or the locations of where to get all the materials. This is why I recommend using the gears database that I will link in the description if you're serious about getting into crafting any gears here, which will provide in-depth information on how to get the majority of the gears in the game. With that, let's start off with the Dragon Coin Exchange NPC. While this NPC doesn't craft anything or give materials required for any of these quests, since he does provide gear, I do want to mention that first. All of his items require Dragon Coins, which are drops you get from completing a floor at any of the challengeable towers. The majority of gear here is considered low tier, and I wouldn't recommend buying any of these unless you have nothing else to begin with. The next thing I should mention is that a lot of quests for crafting here are dependent on the class that you're currently playing, meaning certain quests won't appear if you're playing an incompatible class for the quest. Let's start off with the lower tiered crafts with Fleck. Here is the NPC in the list of gear he is able to craft. This NPC is used as the base for crafting headgear. The next NPC, Elect, uses his gear to create upgrades. Here is Elect and his craftable gears. Next, let's move on to weapons and weapon upgrades. The main weapon base starts from chaotic or demonic items depending on the class. Where you get the base weapons comes from the same place, however, that being Demonic Cage Tower. To unlock this tower and any other towers, you must defeat the towers that come before it. Weapons needed to craft higher tier upgrades, being ground-starred weapons, drop at a low rate on the 5th floor of this tower. They are very hard to get, so they sell for about 10 megs if you're able to get one. How the first stage works is if your class has a weapon that has a chaotic variant, you must upgrade your demonic weapon through Glek, this NPC. Glek has quests to craft ground star weapons as well as upgrade to demonic items. The quests that he provides are dependent on the class you're playing, meaning that the rewards will not be the same for everyone. Once you have upgraded your demonic weapon if it has a chaotic variant, or have obtained an exercise weapon that does not require upgrades, you are able to obtain an auroral weapon. Auroral weapons require dawn ores and chaotic peats to craft. Dawn ores are obtained by Yomoto Tenshu Tower, and chaotic peats are obtained as a random reward from the Millenary Peace quest from Defense War. The NPC who upgrades your weapons is here. Once you've obtained 5 dawn ores and a chaotic peat, you'll be able to upgrade your weapon and return to Glek to start crafting ground star weapons. As mentioned in the reference image, the materials to craft ground star weapons are obtained by completing the Abandoned Era Tower. There is one more weapon upgrade, which involves using a ground star weapon to craft a lava weapon. These weapons are relatively new and very hard to craft, but if you're interested in knowing what materials you need to craft it, visit this NPC. This NPC will ask for 1000 Charusites and 15 Sparkling Charusites, obtained from completing the Lava Eddy Tower. With all the craftable weapons explained, let's move on to crafting armor. Crafting armor is cheaper than weapons and starts off with this NPC over here. This NPC gives you quests to create Meito armor, which involves using gear dropped from Kobality Core towers, as well as Hell Peaches, obtained from Hooray Hirosaka towers. The next upgrade to gears goes back to this NPC. He takes materials obtained from the Dolomity Corn Tower and upgrades your Meito armor into Dolomity armor. It requires 750 Dolomites and 15 magical Dolomites. These are considered endgame gear and is likely impossible to clear without a strong party. The majority of players still use Meito and ground star gear, so I wouldn't worry about getting these anytime soon. The last topic I wish to give a note on is samurai and ninja gears. As these classes function different than other jobs, they naturally don't have the same ways of crafting gear. For crafting weapon drops, you must first obtain a weapon that drops from a boss at a low rate inside of Kuki Cave. The weapon you're looking for is Totsuki no Tsurugi, which is used as the base for crafting ground star weapons in the case of samurai. In the case of armor, it gets a bit harder as you're required to get an item that appears as a random reward in this quest here. This quest requires you to get materials from Kuki Cave, as well as mobs nearby Akitsu. Once you complete this quest, you will get random rewards including samurai and ninja gear. This quest is full of RNG, making samurai and ninja very hard to gear up. I wanted to mention this here since people will often ask how to get samurai gear since they are rewarded differently. With that, I will conclude my video on crafting gear. This guide took quite a while, so I hope that you understood everything, and I hope that my video helps out in any way. Thanks for watching.